Okay, first things first, since this is a video about node shortcuts, pretty much everything I'm gonna say is not gonna be true if you don't have Node Wrangler enabled. So go to add-ons in the preferences. Alright, so how do you get to the node editor? You could go here, or here rather, and click on shader net editor, but you see these shortcuts here. So just pressing Shift F3 will get you there as well. So how do you move around? Holding down the middle mouse button will allow you to move around. Okay. First, let's talk about some organizational shortcuts. If I have this and I want to move it, I can click and drag, but I can also press G. Sometimes it only works if you press G. G is for grab. If you have multiple nodes selected and you want to bring them closer, you can press S to scale it, or maybe X to scale it only along the X-axis, or SY to scale it along the Y-axis. If you want to, for example, bring all of these on one line, you can use rotate to try and bring them together like this. Then maybe select all and then S along the X-axis, and then just like that, they're all on one line. And now if you want to have them equally spaced, you can press Shift equals, which will space them out nicely like this. Okay, let's rotate these around and then scale them along the X-axis and bring this back here. 0. So how do you select nodes? There's multiple options. You can just click and drag for box select. You can press B to do the same thing, and then if you hold down middle mouse button while dragging instead of using your left mouse click, then you will deselect. The same for circle. You can also hold down middle mouse button to deselect, and if you press CTRL ALT, you get lasso select. Okay, so sometimes you want to group things together but not in a node group. Then you can press Shift P, which adds in a frame, and if you press F2 you get to rename something. So let's change this to frame, and you can see it has a name, and if I want to change it again I can press F2 just like that. Now if I want to for example remove these nodes from the frame, I can press Alt P, just like you would do in when unparenting something, and then you can press delete or X to delete the frame. Great. So one other thing is, for example, if I want to combine these two, for example this and the viewer, I can press F, although it doesn't always work if the corrected types, but in this case it connected here. Then to delete this, I'm holding out down Control and then my right mouse button, which deletes these the connections, just like a cut tool. But for example, so right here I'm holding down Alt and then right mouse button to connect them. I'll explain more about that later. So if I want to add a reroute node, you can hold down Shift and then the right mouse button, which adds in a reroute. And then this one, as you can see, if I click and drag, it's only going to try and add another connection, so you have to press G to move it around. So I talked about a node group. So to get a node group, what you can do is you select some nodes that you want in your group, and then you press Ctrl and then G, and it adds a node group. And then you can press Tab if you have the node group selected to go in and out of the node group. And for example, if you're out of the node group and you decide that you don't want this node group, you press Ctrl Alt and then G to remove the node group, just like that. Great. So how do you add a node? Maybe the most important thing is Shift A, just like in the rest of Blender. And you can here search for a node like, I don't know, mix RGB or something. But you can also navigate the menus, which is what I usually do. So another way to quickly add nodes is, for example, duplicating, which you can do with Shift D, which duplicates the node. You can also press CTRL C and then CTRL V, but this is less, it's slower and usually it doesn't work the way you expect it to. Then, for example, if I want to combine these two, there are multiple options. For example, if I press CTRL SHIFT and then right mouse drag, it's going to connect them with a mix shader, just like that, which is really useful if you're combining two colors or something like that. If I want to combine these two, I don't want to combine them with a mix shader, but just connect a node. I hold down Alt and then click and drag, so you can see it gets red. But let's say I want to connect the normal instead, and then to the second node socket. I'm pressing Ctrl Z here to undo. You can press Ctrl Shift and then drag, and it I meant Alt, no, yeah, Alt Shift and then drag, and it becomes blue. And then you get an option. Okay, I want it to go from the normal to the color, like that. Right. Let's see what else. So let's say I need to have 5 texture coordinate nodes. What I can do is duplicate it, and then if I hold down, press Shift R, it's going to repeat my last action. And then, for example, by box selecting and pressing SX0, it's going to make sure that they are all aligned. If you press any of the rotate stuff, the rotate, grab, or scale, you can also hold down Control. So let's see, and then it's going to try and snap it to the grid. Now let's say I want to combine all of these with I don't know, something like a multiply, like a mix multiply. You can press Alt and then the multiply key. Sorry, Control Alt and then the multiply key, and then it combines them all together. And for example, if you want to combine these now with, I don't know, a math node, like the math node, and then set to multiply, you can press Control Shift and then the multiply key. But maybe I don't want the multiply key. I want to change all of these to be divide instead. You can press Alt and then divide, and it automatically batch changes it to divide. Or maybe I press Alt comma or Alt semicolon. It depends on the keyboard shortcuts. I mean, it depends on the keyboard layout that you have. So what I suggest you do is just press Control Alt and then start spamming keys on your keyboard to see which keys do what, and the same for Control Shift, and then start spamming keys. Now most of these shortcuts can actually be found when pressing Shift W under the Node Wrangler context menu. So for example, Shift Node Type is a really useful one, Shift S. So let's say I want to switch this node type, I can press Shift S, and maybe I can change it to something like a texture, checker texture, just like that. Now right now these nodes are all collapsed, and the way to do that is to press H. So H toggles the collapse, and if you want to remove the unused node sockets, you can press Ctrl H. This helps you clean up. For example, all these take up a lot of space, because if I press H and then Ctrl H as well, you can see that they take up much less space, and then I can scale them down with SY, and then this is quickly becoming a lot more organized. So, and maybe if I want a bit more space, I can press Shift equals to space them out nicely, like that. I'm trying to remember if I missed some things. Okay, so right now the top one is going to the top one and the bottom one is going to the bottom one. If I press Alt S, it switches them around, just like that. And probably the most important thing that Node Wrangler offers is pressing Ctrl Shift and then left mouse click will connect this node to the viewer. So if I switch this to Eevee, you can see it is giving the result of this one Now they're giving the result of this one and then the result of this one, which is a great way to view the results of right now. This node sort was unused, so I couldn't control shift, but if I press CTRL H and then I can control shift click again. And in the latest versions of Blender, for example, if I group these all together with CTRL G, you can now also press CTRL shift click inside node group, which didn't work before, and then let's say I tab out of the node group and I add in a new, I don't know, texture, Voronoi texture, and I now do this, then you can see that the viewer node socket here was automatically removed. So those are some of the shortcuts that I use. There are lots of other shortcuts. I've probably missed some important ones. Just as a side note, I found this really funny. I was looking through some shortcuts and I pressed CTRL SHIFT G and it said select grouped, but using this crashes Blender, but maybe not in the latest version. And most of these shortcuts can be found in the key map. If you just search node, you can probably find most of the shortcuts that I was talking about and a lots of others. So yeah, that's all. Yeah, so I did miss some important ones, which I think it's worth it to add them here. So again, let's for example add in a texture, maybe an image texture. Well, not an image texture because I don't have an image ready. So let's say usually how this works is you need to change the mapping for this, and you can press CTRL T. This will automatically add a texture coordinate node and a mapping node, and then you can change. Then I'm pressing CTRL SHIFT and then you can change it like that, something like that. And if you have a principled shader, so shader and then principled BSDF, if you press CTRL SHIFT T, and it's going to open up the file browser like this. And for example, if I go to textures, something like, I don't know, floor, and I select all of these, it has albedo, normal, and roughness. It's automatically gonna add the correct nodes just like that, and then I get the correct output really quickly. So that's some important shortcuts. So maybe I don't, for example, if I don't want the mapping node, instead of deleting it and then manually reconnecting, you can press CTRL X to delete a node. So, and another way to remove the node while leaving the connections intact is pressing Alt and then clicking and then dragging. And now if I press Alt P, I can remove it from the frame. And then I still have the mapping node, so I don't need to add it back again. So yeah, that's all.